The Spanish Civil War. A brutal and devastating conflict, a microcosm of the ideological struggles engulfing Europe at the time. It was a prelude to a larger, more devastating war to come. The echoes of this conflict still resonate, reminding us of the fragility of peace and the devastating consequences of division. Spain, in the 1930s, was a nation on the brink of collapse. Deeply divided along political, social and economic lines, it was a powder keg waiting for a spark. The Spanish Civil War, far from being a distant historical event, holds profound lessons for our times. It reminds us that democracy is a fragile thing, constantly under threat from extremism and authoritarianism. This is the story of that war, a story of courage and sacrifice, of brutality and betrayal. It is a story that needs to be told and retold, lest we forget the lessons of the past. It is a story that reminds us of our shared humanity, even amidst the horrors of war. This is the story of the Spanish Civil War, a story of a nation divided, a story that continues to resonate in the 21st century. By the 1930s, Spain was a nation teetering on the edge of a precipice, a country fraught with tension and uncertainty. Years of political instability, economic inequality, and social unrest had created a deeply fractured society, where the gap between the rich and the poor seemed insurmountable. The monarchy, once a symbol of stability and continuity, had been overthrown in 1931, replaced by a fragile republic struggling to maintain order amidst chaos. The newly established republic faced formidable challenges, grappling with the monumental task of uniting a divided nation. On one side were the entrenched forces of conservatism, the wealthy landowners, the Catholic Church and the military, who viewed the republic with suspicion and disdain, fearing the loss of their traditional privileges. On the other side were the forces demanding change, the workers, peasants and intellectuals who yearned for a more just and equitable society, hoping for reforms that would improve their lives. The Republic's attempts at reform, though well-intentioned, often proved too little, too late, failing to address the deep-rooted issues that plagued the nation. Land redistribution efforts were met with fierce resistance from the landed elite, who were determined to protect their interests at all costs. The Catholic Church, its power and influence threatened, threw its weight behind the forces of conservatism, rallying its followers to oppose the Republic. The army, a bastion of traditional values and authority, watched with growing unease, concerned about the direction in which the country was heading. The stage was set for a confrontation that would tear Spain apart, a conflict that seemed inevitable given the deep divisions within the society. The Spanish people, their voices growing louder, their demands more insistent, were about to become embroiled in a conflict that would determine the fate of their nation, a struggle that would leave an indelible mark on the history of Spain. As Spain hurtled towards the abyss, two distinct and opposing factions emerged from the chaos, the Republicans and the Nationalists. The country was on the brink of a monumental conflict that would shape its future for generations to come. Each represented a fundamentally different vision for Spain's future, their ideological divide mirroring the larger struggle between democracy and fascism that was gripping Europe. This was not just a battle for control of Spain, but a microcosm of the broader ideological war that was spreading across the continent. The Republicans, a diverse coalition of leftists, liberals and Republicans, were united by their commitment to democratic values. They sought to create a society where freedom and equality were paramount, and where the government was truly by the people and for the people. They believed in a Spain that was free from the shackles of the past, a Spain where workers had rights, where land was distributed fairly, and where the church no longer held sway over the levers of power. Their vision was one of progress and modernity, a break from the old ways that had long held Spain back. On the other side stood the Nationalists, a more homogeneous group united by their opposition to the Republic and their yearning for a return to traditional values. They saw themselves as the defenders of Spain's historical legacy and cultural heritage. Led by a charismatic general named Francisco Franco, the Nationalists drew support from the military, the Catholic Church, and the wealthy elite who longed for the stability and order of the old regime. Franco's leadership was seen as a beacon of hope for those who feared the changes proposed by the Republicans. The ideological battle lines were drawn, both sides prepared for a conflict that would be as much about ideas as it was about territory. The Republicans, with their vision of a modern democratic Spain, faced off against the nationalists, who yearned for a return to a more traditional, authoritarian past. The stakes were incredibly high, and neither side was willing to back down. The clash between these two opposing forces would have devastating consequences, not only for Spain, but for the world. The Spanish Civil War became a precursor to the global conflict that would soon engulf the entire planet, serving as a grim warning of the horrors to come. The tension that had been building for years finally erupted in the summer of 1936. The streets of Spain, once bustling with daily life, now echoed with the sounds of unrest and discontent. The assassination of a prominent right-wing politician, José Calvo Sotelo, by Republican assault guards on July 13, 1936, proved to be the spark that ignited the powder keg. His death sent shockwaves through the nation, deepening the divide between the political factions. The fragile peace shattered and Spain descended into a maelstrom of violence and bloodshed. Cities that had once been centers of culture and commerce were now battlegrounds, with citizens caught in the crossfire. General Franco, sensing an opportunity amidst the chaos, launched a military coup from Spanish Morocco on July 17th. His move was calculated, aiming to seize control and restore order under his rule. What began as a military uprising quickly morphed into a full-blown civil war, pitting neighbor against neighbor, brother against brother. The conflict spread rapidly, engulfing the entire nation in its wake. The Spanish people, caught in the crossfire, were forced to choose sides in a conflict that would irrevocably alter the course of their lives. Families were torn apart, and communities were divided as the war raged on. The initial stages of the war were chaotic and brutal. The lack of a clear front line meant that battles could erupt anywhere at any time, leaving civilians in constant fear. The nationalists, with the support of Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, quickly gained ground. Their superior firepower and military organization gave them a distinct advantage, allowing them to launch coordinated attacks. The Republicans, on the other hand, were hampered by internal divisions and a lack of military preparedness. Their efforts were further undermined by infighting and a shortage of resources. As the nationalists advanced, the Republican government found itself fighting a desperate battle for survival. Each day brought new challenges as they struggled to hold their ground against a relentless enemy. The fate of the Republic and the hopes of millions of Spaniards hung precariously in the balance. The outcome of the war would determine the future of Spain, leaving an indelible mark on its history and its people.